All right, let's go over here to this Vibe board, an interactive board. Let me show you the trip and we'll discuss some of the things that went on. Okay? So here is the map. Here's the big map. Let me give you a rough idea. I left Jeffersonville, Indiana one day in late June several years ago, and I drove all the way to Fairbanks. Now, the map shows Fairbanks. I continued on down to Whittier, Alaska down here. Let's talk about that for a minute. So I leave on that trip. I leave here out of Louisville, Kentucky. And what I was doing, I was trying, of course, to tie this a little bit to work. So I drove from Louisville to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and worked the next day. The original idea was at the end of work, there is a ferry that goes from Muskegon, Michigan, over here to somewhere north of Milwaukee. And the original plan was, when I was done, I had driven the Superbird up there. It's about 350 miles. When I was done, I would catch that ferry, go over here, and thereby avoid Chicago. Superbirds don't do real well in hot weather, and this was late June, and it was hot. Well, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, about a half hour before I was done working that day, I got a message that the ferry was canceled. That means I got to drive from Grand Rapids down around Chicago to get where I want to go. Because you see, by now, my goal is I got to get to Chicago and head north. Well, I got out of there. I needed a little gas. I hadn't eaten since noon. I hadn't gone to the bathroom since 8 o'clock in the morning. And I keep thinking, if there's some way, maybe I can get through Chicago before rush hour. Well, I get down here and I hit southern Chicago and thought, oh man, I got it. And then I didn't. I'm sitting in rush hour traffic, 7 lanes wide on the Dan Ryan Expressway in Chicago. The car is overheating and nothing's going, and I drifted over to the side. I had to go to the bathroom. I had no gas. I hadn't eaten, and I was not in a good area. I sat there for about 2 hours.
2 hours later.
We're leaving Chicago. Very nice lady brings me a sandwich and some water while I'm sitting there, and I leave Chicago and I head north. Okay, so we're heading up I-90, go through Madison, Wisconsin. By now, it's pretty late in the day, and I stop for the night somewhere north of Madison, Wisconsin. I can't remember. I think it was Black River Falls, Wisconsin, which is right here. Okay, so that's where I stopped for the first night. Got in there, I don't know what time of the evening, 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Early the next morning, one of the things you do, remember, these cars have all this glass, black top, black interior, no air. I had blown the radio out 30 miles into the trip. I wanted to get going early in the morning. So I get rolling about 5:30 in the morning. By somewhere that morning, I see my first bear. He's dead. Something squished him. But I do see the first bear. Okay, so we head out of Black River Falls. So by now, the idea is I'm up here to Minneapolis. I'm going to keep going up this way. All right. So we get to Minneapolis and I stop for the second night. After leaving Minneapolis, I keep driving. I pull off for gas in Fargo. Truck stop right there by the Fargo Moorhead Visitor Center. Pull back out on the highway. The car dies. Now, as I said, I do my own mechanical work. I'm running it through in my head. The car's just dead. But I still have power to the car. I just don't have engine power. And I'm thinking it through. And I realized I had put in an electronic ignition in this car during my rebuilding. I put in Mopar electronic ignition. And with where I had the ECM, the electronic control module mounted on the firewall, it was getting too hot. And I had the bright idea, since I had a couple of them with me, switch it out, boom, done. Okay, so we head out of Fargo, somewhere around Jamestown, North Dakota. I start heading northwest. So we cut up through here, go through Minot, and I spend the night, that second night, all the way up here, just on the north side of Minot, because I wanted to be fresh to go through up here at the customs at Portal. That's where that's called. I wanted to be fresh to go through customs at Portal. I get up early the next morning. While I was in Minot, a real nice guy with a Dodge Charger comes by and he's begging me to stay. They'd have a quick car show with a Superbird. Well, I couldn't. I had a long way to go. Okay, so we crossed the border, no issues whatsoever in Portal. Guy asked me 3 questions and on you go.
What? Is your quest?
And I cross into, I can't remember if this is Manitoba or Saskatchewan. I believe this is Manitoba, and we cross in to some of the ugliest territory I'd ever seen in my life. It's been strip mined and left to lay. As soon as you clear that, by the time you get down here to Estevan, things start looking real pretty, and I drive all the way up through here, just continuing up, and eventually I meet up with my first informal car show in Regina, Saskatchewan, all the way up here. Guy's been corresponding with me online, and we meet up, have a half dozen cars, meet up and have an informal car show there in Regina, and then I keep going. Why? I got 5,000 miles to drive. You set a goal, you have to meet the goal. So I leave Regina and I keep heading north, and you keep heading north, and you keep heading north, and you keep heading north. All right, so I get way, way up here, and then finally you start heading across, okay? So I stop for the night. I'm running real late. I stop for the night in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is right here, okay? I can still remember the GPS is worthless. It sent me 40 miles out of the way to the north side. Saskatoon's a big city. Finally found it. Next morning, again, get up early, and you keep heading north. You go through North Battleford, and all of a sudden, I'm getting some gasoline smell inside the car. Don't know what it is. I'm getting some gas smell. I get up to Lloydminster. Lloydminster is in British Columbia, if I remember correctly. I cross in Lloydminster, I fill up. That's where I first had my only incident with the general public. A guy gets real nasty with me because I won't give him a ride anywhere. We address the issue, not a problem. But I'm really getting the gas smell when I leave Lloydminster. Now again, you're going to notice I just keep going north. And if you want to know where we are here on the big map, Lloydminster's about right there where the little yellow dot is on the big map. So we're only about halfway through the trip, 750 miles a day. Okay, leave Lloydminster, and now we are rolling. We get all the way over here to Edmonton and then head north. When you leave Edmonton, you leave there, and I'm going to Whitecourt. And man, things are getting nasty. I'm smelling that gas. I stop at Whitecourt for two very important things: gas and ice cream. It's hot, and I gotta have ice cream. I get in the car, and I notice I got gas, not dripping, pouring out of the gas tank. Not sure what it is, but I thought maybe I just overfilled it. You know, those hopes that we all have, and that's all it was a hope. So I leave Whitecourt, and by the time I leave Whitecourt, I get up here to Grand Prairie. All the way up here. When I hit Grand Prairie, I know I got a problem. I have gone through the gas at a rate of about 3 miles a gallon, and the car was getting 13 on the trip. I know I got a problem. Problem is, there isn't anything out there to get it fixed. So I think, man, what do? I'm just going to keep rolling, watch the gas, don't fill it up. I get to Dawson Creek. Now, you may have heard of Dawson Creek, but Dawson Creek, pay attention, that is the last Chrysler Plymouth dealership for 1,200 miles. I get into Dawson Creek on a Friday night about 6 o'clock, and I find that Chrysler dealer. In fact, he's right on the only road going through there. And I pull in. They are going nuts on a Superbird. They call the mechanics at home. They all come in. I said, I got a gas issue. I don't know what's going on. Can we put it on a lift and see? So they put it on a lift. The gas tank, which I had bought prior to the trip, had split. Well, let me tell you, folks, I had a trunk full of parts with me, but I didn't have a gas tank. All right, and I put it up there. I'm thinking, oh, crap, my trip's over. For some reason, Dawson Creek, the Inland Chrysler Plymouth, didn't have an extra gas tank. One of the mechanics told me something I didn't know. He said, you know, there's a two-part epoxy you can put on a leaking gas tank to seal it. We did. Fix the issue. So I'm leaving Dawson Creek. It's 7:30 on a Friday night, and I have a long way to go. I get to Fort St. John, and I get what I think might be the last gas station on the entire trip. Now, here's the problem. I had further I wanted to go that night, and what I wanted to do is go from Fort St. John all the way up here to Pink Mountain. There's one road. There's no gas stations. It's 190 miles, and I only get about 200 miles on a tank, and I'm starting to get into mountains and hills. When I was leaving down here in Dawson Creek, the guys even said, Bob, you got to stop. They aren't going to be open. And I said, well, I'm going to drive there because that's my goal, and if she isn't open, I'll sleep in the car. Now, here's one of the neatest stories of the trip. There's a million neat stories. Here's one of them. I get into Pink Mountain. It is dark. There's nothing going on. And I get to the gas station. The gas station. Notice how I said that? Lady comes walking out. and greets me, and she says, I've been waiting for you. It's not a bad thing. She knew I was coming, and this lady spent 6.5, 7 hours after normal work to wait for the moron driving a Superbird to Alaska so I could fill up. Isn't that neat? That was one of a million stories like that on the whole trip. Well, let's keep going. Where are we over on the map? Well, we're about there, that little white dot. We still got a crap load of driving to go. So let's keep it going. You notice how I keep going north? Oh, here's the other thing that you'll notice. We're starting to see mountains, okay? So you leave Pink Mountain, wherever it was down over here, right here. You leave Pink Mountain and you're on the Alaska Highway and you start skirting some of this stuff. You're not in the 13,000 footers, but you're in enough mountains, and I'm rolling. And the roads by now, I don't care what they tell you, oh, the Alaska Highway's paved. Bull crap. I've driven it. The Alaska Highway is paved, that's right, except for the parts that aren't. You're half gravel, half paved, half oil. I'm going around one of these mountain turns about 65 miles an hour on a gravel road. There's a great big semi-tire right in the middle. My choices are hit the semi-tire or do 3,000 feet straight down. I go for the tire, and we get our first issue of the trip that's not mechanical. I put a big gash down the right-hand side of the car. All right, keep going. You'll notice some of the neat places, and yes, I stopped at every one of them. Toad River, there aren't any stinking toads there. I will tell you, I spent the night in Fort Nelson. I remember that. All right, so you go over here to Toad River, then you go to Muncho Lake, and that is beautiful. There's nobody out there. Okay, keep going. We aren't even in the Yukon yet, but we're seeing it up here. See that line? That's the Yukon. You get to the Liard River, Coal River. Great hamburgers there, by the way. Great hamburgers, but even better cinnamon rolls, just in case you drive it. Finally, north of Coal River, we finally get to cross into the Yukon at Watson Lake, Yukon Territory. Well known for its sign forest. I posted a sign there if you ever stop there. Our sign says S-Bird 70. It's a license plate off of this car. I had taken it particularly for that, but I wasn't ready to stop for the night. Keep going. Now from Watson Lake, you don't go quite north for a while. What happens, you cross into Yukon, then you dribble around down through here until you head back north right about here. You can see very faintly the highway to Teslin, T-E-S-L-I-N. This is wilderness. There's no houses, there's no cars, there's no cell phone, there's no nothing. About every 150 miles, you might be lucky enough to find a place where they sell gas. It's not a gas station. It's just a pump and a tank and a credit card reader. Okay, so I get to Teslin. Wow, Bob, that's a lot of driving. My goal for the night is all the way up here. I thought I'm going to go Whitehorse. I get to Whitehorse, and I'm noticing another problem. My oil pressure's starting to fluctuate. I don't know what to do. I've got thoughts in my head, and I'm thinking, well, it's a 50-year-old car, varnishing the engine. So I keep going. And as I keep going, I'm looking for the town. We cross the Yukon River right through here. That town may not even be big enough to find it on the map. Here it is. I leave Whitehorse, and I stop at a rest area. There's no gas stations between Whitehorse and Haines Junction. None. There's anything there. It's funny, these things, Champaign and Stony Creek, I don't know what they're talking about. There's anything there, some guy's house. Well, about 30 miles outside of Whitehorse, I pop over a hill. Now, the roads have frost heaves. All right, that's because it's permafrost and freezes and thaws. And you're hitting those frost heaves. It is beating the living crap out of the front end of the car. I cross over the top of one of those doing about 65 miles an hour into gravel, and a herd of wild horses runs across the road right in front of me, and I 360 off into the tundra. Now, one thing that I hadn't mentioned that I will mention, at the beginning of the trip, my son Ryan had designed and printed a 3D mount camera that we had mounted on the back wing of the car. And that 3D mount camera here, the guys are giving it to me, this is what it looks like, okay? So it sat on the back wing of the car, and it's got a natural cantilever to match the wing. We had a little clear shield, and then it just opens up and a GoPro would sit inside. We got thousands of pictures. The problem is, you're doing 750 miles a day, every day. I'm not sharp enough. I lose a lot of the pictures, including, apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, including apparently the sliding off the road into the frozen tundra. I got the front nose of that Superbird sitting in the mud. I'm on the only road going to Alaska. It is July 1st, and I got no way to get it out. You can't put a jack in the mud. I realize I'm going to have to find some wood. I walk 4 miles to find enough wood to put under that jack. I go back, I jack it up. My next issue, how am I going to pull it out? Because I can't get it out. I take the other jack. Superbirds have 2 jacks, a post jack and a nose jack. I take the post jack out of the trunk. I have a hand sledge. I pound it into the center of the Alaska highway and tie a come-along to it. You know what that is, a come-along, to the rear axle and slowly pull the car out. 4 hours later, I'm rolling. Not one car went by in 4 hours. I didn't say not one car stopped. I said not one car went by in 4 hours. Okay, I limp into Haines Junction. I got no oil pressure. I figure I've lost an engine. Problem is, there ain't any mechanics in Haines Junction, Yukon. So I have a sat phone with me, a satellite phone I've rented. I call AAA or CAA, Canadian Auto Association, and they call all the way back here to Whitehorse. And I talked to the guy, I said, don't send a tow truck with a hook. Send one with a flatbed because of the nose. Guy comes with a flatbed. We're driving the 4 hours back to Whitehorse. And he said, so what do you think's going on? I said, well, I've either lost an engine, maybe valve seats, I don't know. And I said, no, I'm hoping it's something as simple as a sending unit. And I said, I'm hoping that's it. He said, how would you know if it's a sending unit? And I said, well, I'm hoping you guys have a oil pressure sending unit gauge, a gauge I can put in the place in the back of the engine on these big blocks to put a gauge in. He said, oh yeah, we got one of them. Get back to the shop, put it in. The sending unit had gone bad. I'll be darned. I had replaced that with an aftermarket piece. I don't know if you've noticed, every single thing that's broken down is something I had put on that's supposedly better of a new model. What's even wilder is we called Napa in Whitehorse and they had one. I spent the night at Whitehorse. You know why? I wanted to go into Alaska. It's not like 4,000 miles was enough. I decided to take a side trip. You see Whitehorse up here? Well, right down here is one of the few places in southeast Alaska you can drive to. It's called Skagway. I decided to drive from Whitehorse to Skagway. I've driven that before, not in a Superbird, and it is as beautiful a drive as you'll ever go in your whole life. There's some lakes up there, just absolutely gorgeous, wild, high. There's nothing out there, no people. There's one little community at Carcross. So I leave Whitehorse, I go to Carcross. I'm getting ready to cross the border coming back into the United States, and I have an issue with a customs officer. The issue with the customs officer, now again, you got to think about it. I have 5 straight days of beating this fat old man up. The car is beat to snot. I'm tired, but I got a goal, and by God, I'm going to make that goal. So this guy at the customs port, U.S. agent, walks up to me and says, Super Bee, huh? We had a lot of those. Now, if you talk somebody with a Superbird, you got one thing that'll light us up. It's calling this a Super Bee. And I looked at him very not nice and said, it's not a Super Bee. It's a Superbird. And he said, Super Bee, Superbird, they're all the same to me, or something like that. And without thinking, I looked at him and said, only a moron doesn't know the difference between a Super Bee and a Superbird. And about 30 seconds later, I was handcuffed on the back of the car. The guy's supervisor comes out, straightens it all out. And then he asked me, he says, Mr. Jennings, you're driving the one-way road from Carcross down here to Skagway. Are you coming back? I said, yeah, I'm coming back tonight. And he said, wait until after 5 o'clock when he's off. So I drove down to Skagway. I do have a bunch of pictures there. One outside the Red Onion Saloon. I couldn't keep some of the ladies from crawling on the car and getting their pictures. Interpret that, if you will. You can look up Red Onion Saloon in Skagway. Got a picture of the car in front of a cruise ship. You remember seeing that? All right. Then I drove back up. Now here's your issue. You got like 7 or 8 miles straight up that valley. and I was a little concerned. Didn't have any issues, a little concerned. One of the pictures hanging on the wall here at the shop and in my office is the car at the top of the pass. Snow behind me, July 3rd, 2000 and whatever year that was, half dozen years ago. We crossed Beaver Creek heading into Talk. We finally have some decent road, and I decide to light it up. Why? Because I'm an idiot as much as that custom agent, and I decide to light it up and figure I'm the only stupid SOB that drove a Superbird all the way to Alaska. I'm going to be the only one that exceeds 100 miles an hour. I think I'm past the statute of limitations, and I opened that sucker up and hit about 120 on that road and blew that oil sending unit again because I could hear it go. All right. I get up here, there's nothing up there. Talk, Alaska, by the way, probably the armpit community of Canada and Alaska. It is nasty. Get in there, get some gas, keep going past Delta Junction, and finally get all the way up here to Fairbanks. Now in Fairbanks, you can go a little further north, and then you're on a private road with permission. I didn't have it. I wasn't done. Spent the night in Fairbanks and decided I'm going to drive a little bit further. So I thought I'm going to drive from Fairbanks. I drove all the way down here to Anchorage, through Seward, through the one-way railroad tunnel to Seward, which is somewhere on the internet. My son took the time-lapse video of that and turned around at Seward, Alaska. So there's part one, a little longer than we wanted. I'm doing that trip again this summer. Summer of 2022. On July 20th, 2022, I am leaving my home in Jeffersonville, Indiana. And what we're going to do is I'm taking the purple Hemi Superbird that you've seen in other videos on the back of my ramp truck and driving this same white Superbird all the way back to Alaska. We're going to be at the car show in Edmonton, Alberta. I think that's Alberta. Edmonton, Alberta, that weekend, July 23rd and 4th. Western Mopar Madness. Leaving the race car and the ramp truck, and then I'm going to keep driving up into Alaska to recreate the trip. I'll be up there somewhere around the 25th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Of July. Love to see you. I'm not going to be getting off the main road, but until part two here in a couple of weeks, that'll end us for this week. Bob Jennings, Jennings Wing Cars. Thank you, everybody.